You're watching Hot Wok Academy. My name is Mingjin Tong, and today we're gonna make a very simple, delicious, very popular Hong Kong style dish called Hainan chicken rice. And even people from Hong Kong say it's not from Hainan. People from Hainan say it's not from Hainan either. So cook along with us. I think you're really gonna enjoy this. Let's cook. Okay, so for our Hainan style chicken rice, here's some of the ingredients. It's very simple actually. We're gonna have one small knob of ginger root. That's really all you need for this. Just make sure it's clean on the outside. You don't really need to peel it. We're gonna have a yellow onion, as well as some beautiful scallions here that will help impart a lot of flavor to our soup. And of course, we will have some cilantro, and you could just grab a handful of sprigs of cilantro, and that's really all you need. Also, you're gonna need some chicken thighs. So here I have 4 chicken thighs. Now make sure you get chicken thighs that are obviously fresh, but get them with the skin on and with the bone in. This dish, one of the stars of this dish is the chicken skin. So make sure you pick a chicken thigh that has a nice whole skin, and I will show you how to trim that. And then lastly, of course, is your white rice. So today I'm using a short grain rice, and we will use the chicken stock to cook the rice. So that's why it's just in this bowl for now. We'll show you how to do that. Okay, so why don't we start with some of our veggies. You know, one rule that I like to have as I work across my board and getting things ready is I like to prepare the cleanest ingredients first and move toward the messiest, or maybe some of the ingredients that could be a little dangerous, like raw chicken. So I'm gonna start here, and I've got my super long kirisuke knife here, and bench scraper, and let's just start with the real simple ingredients. So the first thing is our cilantro. You don't even need to do much with this. We, believe it or not, are just gonna throw it into our soup just the way it is, because sadly, we're not really gonna be eating the cilantro. The cilantro, however, is one of the essential flavor profiles you need for a Hainan chicken rice. So we're gonna get this ready. That's all we're gonna do. I rinsed it and it's ready to go. And then for our scallions, same thing. I like to have a lot of this fresh scallion flavor, and we're gonna use the entire scallion, all the way from the root down to those wilted tips, totally fine. Just make sure that you've cleaned them and peeled them very well. And to help release some of those flavors from the scallion, I will maybe just give it a couple cuts here and there, but I want them to be large enough to be able to pull out later. So we're gonna go ahead and use all this scallion. We'll get that ready right here. And that's gonna go into our pot. Again, this is a very simple prep. Same thing for our ginger root. Now, there's a couple ways you could do this. If you want, you could take your ginger root, and you know, I wanna cut off some of those dead ends right there. I'm not gonna use that. And one way to do the ginger root is by doing slices. And you could do nice and thick slices, but a very simple way, because again, we're not gonna be eating the ginger root. We're gonna be using the ginger root to flavor the soup. And because it is whole, it's hard for the water to be able to penetrate through such a heavy and thick root. So what's the solution? You can simply put your ginger root down. You can see what's coming here. And you could take your bench scraper or a cleaver if you want, and just give that a nice mash. And what you're doing is you are breaking that ginger root apart. And when it's broken apart, it releases its juice, and it has a lot more contact with that hot water. You can imagine tea. If you have tea leaves that are all clumped together, it's not gonna make a really good flavored tea, right? In the same way, we're gonna break that ginger root apart, and that's gonna be ready for us. And then the very last piece here is our yellow onion. Now, same thing. We are not gonna be eating the yellow onion. The yellow onion is gonna be used for 2 things. Number 1, yellow onion imparts a really nice flavor and soup. And also, this beautiful skin, if you add that to your broth, it will give a nice deep color to your broth. So try it sometime. Anytime you're making a stock, if you add yellow onion skin, it works really well. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna take this and cut it right in half, and it's gonna go into the soup just like that. All of these cells are now broken, and the water hitting it in the soup is gonna make a nice flavor. So onions in there, and we are ready to go. And remember, I want this skin, okay? So that's all the prep that we need to do for our Hainan chicken. Let's move over here to our chicken station. So you notice my board today, I've got an Epicurean, it's a paper pulp board. And because of the chicken, I kind of want to keep it off the board. It's just a little bit easier to clean later on. So I've got here on my plastic cutting board. When you work with raw chicken, one thing that's really important is keep a knife hand separate from your food hand. And really, you should always be doing that when you're cooking. So for the chicken, what we've got here is skin on chicken thigh, which means it also has the bone inside. So there's two processes I'm gonna do right now. Number one, I wanna trim up that chicken skin. I wanna remove some of that fat, but here's why. I want the chicken skin to match the size of the chicken thigh so that when I slice it later, it looks really nice, okay? So let's start by removing just some of this fat. And you know what? We're not gonna throw the fat away. We are gonna save it, and we're actually gonna add it to our soup as well. And let's check to see the alignment of the skin on the thigh. So I can see here, I just wanna square up this edge a little bit. And same thing here, I'm gonna square this up so it looks real nice. We're gonna treat each piece of this chicken very carefully, and the finished product will look really nice, okay? So there's our chicken thigh. The skin looks about right. Let's go ahead and turn that over. And you wanna take the sharp point of your knife and let's go in. What I want to do here is I want to draw a line right along the side of the bone of the thigh. So put your fingers down in a claw shape and let's bring the knife right in along that bone. You need make sure you got a nice sharp knife. And then from here, I'm gonna go and cut underneath that bone. And if you look real carefully here, you'll see that attached to the bone is this cartilage. I don't want the cartilage as a part of my finished product. I'm gonna cut that out along with cutting out the bone. Let's see if I can show you from this angle here. Let's go ahead and go underneath on both sides. And we're gonna go under that cartilage and we're gonna remove that, okay? We'll put the knife on this side as well, removing that bone entirely. And don't worry if a lot of the meat comes off with the bone, because we're gonna be boiling the bone and that meat in your soup anyways. So we'll go underneath again and make sure your knife is nice and sharp, and we'll remove that bone. We're gonna save the excess skin and fat, save that excess bone. That's gonna go right into our soup, and you are ready. So here's your thigh, and that is ready to go. So let's go ahead and do the rest of them. Once your thighs are deboned and you've got all of that skin nice and squared up and you've got your thighs all cleaned up, let's go ahead and head over to the stove and let's get this cooking. Okay, so I actually decided to boil my water and then set it here so you could actually we could finish the dish from right here. So I've got about half a pot of water. There's probably about 6 cups of water in here. You really don't actually need a lot. You do need enough water to cover all your food, and this soup is going to be used as the water to make our rice a little bit later. So you do want to have enough for that, okay? So when your water is hot and boiling, you want to go ahead and take everything that you've prepared. So let's start with the ginger root. Ginger root's gonna go in. And of course, all that cilantro will just go right in as well. And again, there's nothing in here but boiling water. So same thing, oh, I can already smell that. That's just an amazing aroma. Here is our yellow onion, both halves with the skin and even that root, totally no problem. And of course, our onion skin is gonna go right in. And then all of our scallions that we prepared earlier, let's get that all in. And what we wanna do is we wanna bring that back to a boil. If your fire has reduced, I'm gonna go ahead and turn my fire all the way up, and let's go ahead and get that all incorporated. Now, we're gonna let this boil for just a couple minutes to let those aromatics begin to flavor the water. The total cook time on your chicken, especially chicken that is about this thick, the thickness of the thigh, this in boiling water, which again is gonna be 212 degrees, in order to bring your chicken from room temperature, about 70 degrees, to the internal temperature of 165 when your water is at 212, is about 10 to 12 minutes, depending on the thickness of the thigh. So it's not a super long cook time. You don't want to overcook your chicken. A couple reasons for that is that you want the chicken to be nice and tender and real juicy when you cook it, and you don't want to overcook that skin. You don't want that skin falling apart because, again, one of the main features of this dish is the texture of your chicken skin, okay? So I've got all these aromatics going, and what I'm gonna do is just real gently, I'm gonna lay my chicken right in there. It doesn't have to stay on top, that's not really the point, but I wanna get my chicken in, and we're gonna go ahead and let that boil. Just make sure that all the chicken is in that water. You're gonna let it boil uncovered, first on high to bring it back up to temp. And then when it starts to boil again, you want to reduce your heat to a simmer. And here's a very important part of making this dish. You want to make sure that your soup is nice and clear, and that when you pull your chicken out, there is none of that chicken blood that is on top of your chicken skin, because it kind of makes a gray, a gray mess on your chicken skin. So in order to do that, we're gonna be skimming our soup every once in a while to make sure all that comes out. Let's get the chicken bones now. If you remember, we had these bones earlier, and these bones have a lot of this cartilage, and the cartilage, when it melts, it creates almost like a gelatin for your stock, which is really good. So let's get those bones in. And then of course, I like this extra skin and extra fat because it's going to add like we call it jio, or chicken oil, chicken fat in the soup. So let's go ahead and add that in as well. And we're gonna let that boil, and we're gonna let it simmer, and we're gonna keep it skimmed. Okay, so our chicken with all the aromatics has been boiling now for about 10 minutes. And I've just got it at a simmer. It's kind of a rapid simmer. I'm gonna turn that down a little bit. And what I wanna do is I wanna skim it. Because especially when you have bone, and if there's any exposed inside of bone, there's a little bit of blood, a little bit of marrow. And so what you want to do is you want to clean that soup and just remove some of that, we call it pao, or bubbles, because I don't want that to be in my rice, nor do I want it to coat my chicken skin. So let's go ahead and just take that out. Let me actually get a bowl. Let's get a bowl, and we're gonna set that on the side. And it really is not a lot of that to skim out, but I am gonna skim out what I can. And I want to make sure that my soup is nice and clean. All right. And then your chicken temperature should get to 165 degrees. So let's go ahead and test that and see how we're doing. So I'm gonna find the thickest piece of thigh that I can, and I'm gonna go ahead and here's my thermometer, just a nice pin thermometer, and let's just check the temperature on that. And so we're at 184, well ready to go. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take all the chicken out. Now, we're gonna work very carefully. So what I have here is I have just a bowl with ice water. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take out one piece of thigh, careful not to damage that skin, and make sure there's no greens attached to it. There's just a little bit there. Okay, there we go. And we're gonna set that right into the ice water. And again, the skin is so important in this dish. What we're doing is we're making sure that that skin does not overcook, and the sudden shock of that hot water or the cold water on that chicken is going to help the skin create a very wonderful texture. So here's our second piece. You can see how much that shrunk down. Let's go ahead and get that in the ice water as well. And I've got two more in here. Let me pull them out. Boy, they're a little bit hard to find. All right, here is the third piece. All right. So the third piece of chicken right into the water bath or ice bath. And the last one, here we go. All right. We're gonna go ahead and let that sit. The Hainan chicken dish, it is served at a room temperature, so it's gonna be totally fine to let that sit for just a minute. We don't want it to get icy cold, but I do want the skin to totally cool down, stop cooking, and firm up, okay? So let's go to set that here. For our stock, this stock now is gonna be used to make our rice. So I'll show you how we're gonna do that. Once you've got your chicken pulled out, it's time to strain your stock. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna get 2 dry towels. Make sure you don't use a wet towel. Wet towel on hot metal creates steam and it'll burn you pretty quick. And we're gonna strain our soup entirely. And you can see the nice color that onion skin gave us after only about 15 minutes of boiling. So really quite effective. And again, all of this, you can decide what you wanna do with this. You can pick at it. You could eat the onion if you want. You can add it later, but we are not going to use this as part of our Hainan chicken rice dish. So pull this out, and it's got a nice, just totally strained here, and that's ready to go. So we'll use this to make our rice. And then we're going to go ahead and remove our chicken from the ice bath. And you know what? I'm actually going to use my hand for this. All right, let's pull these out. And if you notice, I have not used any salt yet. And the reason why is because the sauce that we use with this Hainan chicken is a very salty sauce. You can actually find it in another video, the ginger scallion sauce. You can find the link below, and you can learn how to make the sauce that goes along with this dish in that other video. So take a look at this chicken skin. It's just got a fantastic texture. So this skin, again, is the coveted part of the dish. So that's why we spent so much time making sure that it's done right. So this is how we're gonna slice it. We want to slice the chicken across the long way, okay? So let me see, make sure you can see this here. For all 4 pieces here, I'll give my board just a wipe. All right. And again, preserving that skin, I want to have pieces that we can eat with chopsticks, 1 bite at a time. I don't want it too thick because, you know, we want bite-sized pieces. And you don't want it too thin because you don't want that skin to fall apart. We're not cutting at an angle here, just cutting straight vertically down. Each piece should be uniform so that when they're served, they look nice. We'll set this aside and we will plate it later when our rice is done. Let's go ahead and move on to making our rice. This is how we're gonna do it. In a pot, you wanna take your rice. I've got here, this is about 3 cups of white short grain rice. And let's go ahead and add it. Now, Hainan chicken rice is a kind of rice that should be falling apart. Or not falling apart, but not super sticky. We like it to have a little bit so that you can taste all the grains, okay? So we don't want it to be super sticky. And in order to do that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna rinse the rice. Rinsing it, you can see just how milky that water gets. When we rinse it, we are getting all that rice starch that is in the rice out, and we're gonna do that about 3 times until the water runs a lot more clear than it is right now. So let's go ahead and rinse it one more time and see how we're doing. Still pretty milky, pretty cloudy, but you can see how it's starting to really run clear at the end there. Let's do that one more time. 3 or 4 times should be enough. That's a lot better. I can see the bottom of the pot a little bit better now. And just one more time. All right, and that is running a lot more clear. So most of that starch is now out. With the starch out, what that means is the rice will not be so sticky when we cook it. And let's go ahead and bring this back over. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna add our chicken soup that we made right to this raw rice. And we're gonna add it the same level that we would if we were adding water. So the same amount of liquid in the rice before we cook it. All right. And let's see here. I like to use the finger method, which means I'm gonna stick my finger into the hot soup, and I want about to the first digit of my middle finger. So let's see, that's pretty hot. I need a little bit more. And let's level out that rice and check that one more time. And that is about right. Let's go ahead and put this into the rice cooker, and when it's done, we'll come back and plate it. So let's check the level of the liquid in the rice. I want to make sure that I've got enough. Good, it's up to my first digit there. And also, I am going to add a little bit of salt because unlike white rice, Hainan chicken rice does have its own flavor. So we're going to add some salt in there, maybe just a little bit more. All right, and that is good. And for this particular rice cooker, we're gonna add 1 cup of rice to the outside pot. And let's go ahead and set our rice with the chicken soup in it and turn that on. We'll let that cook. When that's all done, we'll come back and finish the plating. Okay, so our rice is done. And let me just tell you what I've got here on the table. I've just got some fresh cilantro sprigs, and I wanna use that just to add a little bit of green when we're done. And for our Hainan chicken, you know, normally we would do a ginger scallion sauce, and this is an adaptation that I've done. I'll make another video sometime to show you this one. But this is a ginger scallion sauce with just a lot more aromatics in. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go and add this one as a substitute. And let's go ahead and just drizzle that on to our Hainan chicken. Again, normally you would have just a very light scallion and ginger oil, and this is gonna be our substitute for today. And let's just take some of that cilantro and just sprinkle it on for a nice bit of green. And then for our rice, which is all finished here, let's go ahead and open that up. And you can see just the wonderful color that is produced by that onion skin as well as that cilantro. So this is the right both the texture and the color and the moisture that we want for Hainan chicken rice. Now, normally what they do, actually, let me show you how they plate it normally in Asia. You would take a nice rice bowl, and let's take our rice paddle, and what we're gonna do, so we don't talk a lot about this, but you know, we don't dig into our rice. What you wanna do is you want to pull it across the top and just kind of skim it off. You don't want to stick your paddle to the bottom and lift up like you're digging to the bottom. Just give it a nice scrape, and what that does is it helps to release some of that steam. You can see it coming off, and it keeps it nice and fluffy. So let's go ahead and fluff our rice up, and let's pack some into the bowl. And that is how we serve it. So let's pack this in. All right, we'll get that all the way in here, and we're gonna pat that down to get the nice shape of the rice on the inside, and we'll turn this over and press that onto our plate, and that is how we will serve it. Let's see if I can do it without spilling here. All right. All right, there you go. There is your Hainan chicken rice. I hope you've enjoyed cooking along. Let me know what you think of it in the comments, and thanks for watching.